All right, hi everybody. I hope you're doing well. This is the last of the crash course videos. So I'm going to briefly cover some things that go with lighting, how to bake in lighting, kind of the advantage of each of them. So you can see each sort of element, and then we'll also talk about like slicing sprite sheets and animations, and then that will cover all of the basics of using the Unity editor. So the first thing you're going to see on my screen, this is a just simple, it was a prefab that I've used so far in my editor. But one of the things that is different is I've enclosed this so you can see what's called an area light. And I'm going to show you a couple of other lights as well. So the first one, if you go to your 3D objects here, I'm sorry, if you go to the light, you have these options. The directional light is going to be more like like the sunlight or the moonlight. So this is when you open a scene in Unity, this is one of the default lights that's in the scene. And you can see it has this sort of icon where it's sort of illuminating the scene from the sky. That's how I think of it. The other type of light, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this enemy here, is what's called a point light. And this is a real-time light. And when you add it like this, you can see it right here. And what it does, if you zoom out some, is it makes this sort of globe light shape. And you can change it some. So if I go in here, I can sort of make it this size. And this is what's called a real-time light. So you can see on the side, if I look in the inspector, it's real time. I can go in and I can change the color to be like this green color. And I can still move it. And you can see the reflection kind of like this. So that's what a point light does. It emits light in every direction right here. And you can see that it reflects off of the floor a little bit. It reflects, and I can probably make this go in some. It will reflect off of the ceiling, and you'll see all of these different reflections in each direction. If there was a wall here, you would see it there as well. The next one is what's called a spotlight. So again, I'll go to light, I'll do a spotlight. And this is a light that is, as you can see, it's much more direction focused. So when you look at this light, and I'll zoom over here, you can see that it has this sort of cone shape. And much like the other light, this one goes all the way here. So I can kind of zoom it in some so you can see it, and you can see the light kind of extend this way. I can turn up the intensity if I want to, so yeah, it's a little bit easier to see um, the spotlight. Now, the other light that you have in Unity is called an area light, and it's a little bit more complicated. I'm going to kind of explain how it works. So you can see that this cube here has what's called an area light attached to it. So the purpose of this light is that it pre-calculates all of this stuff. And if you look at the scene, you can see each of the lighting right there. So I have this light here, I have the spotlight, and then if I zoom in some, you can also see this area light in the background. And this just pre-calculates all of the lighting, shadows, and everything else. So you pre-render it in the hopes that it will take away some of the challenges that can occur when you have a lot of, we'll call them computationally expensive elements in a game. So in this case, when you look at this light, you can see it's right here. And it doesn't just like if I add another light to this, and I'll just show you like another example. So if I add an area light right here, okay, and I'm gonna have this be kind of a part of this shape right here. And you can see like right now, it's not really on this shape, and I'm going to try to move it as close as I can. And I can rotate it some. So if I wanted this to maybe face more this way, then I can do that right here. And I can also sort of change its size right here. So I'm going to just kind of make a very small size like this. Okay, and I should see it this way. And it is out of it, so I'm not going to try to do like that. All right, now in order for the light to show up or to bake the light, what you have to do is change some object to be static, meaning it's not going to move. And then the last step, I'm going to click on my area light again, is I need to go in and change the settings for the light. So just to illustrate it, I'm going to make it this color. I'm also going to, since it's right here, I might try something like this. I'm going to make this one static. And so you can see like I have my light here, I have this as a static object. And then what I'm going to do is render the light. So if I look at the game right now, I can see my lights, but that's kind of it. I'm not seeing the new light that I added. I'm going to move my camera over some so I can see everything. Okay. So the next step is I'm going to go up to my window. I'm going to go to rendering and I'm going to go to lighting. And you're going to see that I have this option that says generate lighting. And what I'm going to do is click generate. And as you can see on well, it's not showing on your screen, but what's happening is it's calculating how much light it's going to show. Right, so once I have hit that button, you can now see that the light is not only showing on the floor, but also it's showing on this side. So when I look at my game, I can see all of this light that's already pre-rendered here. So it takes a bit of time to render these lights, but if you have a lot of lights in a scene, sometimes it's better to get those like set up before the person hits play or the player hits play, just because again, there could be other processes that you want to use. So this is how the area light works. In a scene, you can see again, it's a soft light. It's not going to be as intense as like the spotlight, which is right here, or as the point light, which is right there. But you can also see it in the scene, and it does have, typically they're used for things like in like indoor environments to illuminate, where you don't need a ton of light. You might just need a little, especially they're really good for like different kinds of we'll say like mood lights, like if you're making a horror game or if you're trying to illuminate an area without using like really bright lights. They can help a lot with that. And their advantage is they don't take as much memory. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is the animations. So if we look at our shape right here, let's say that I just want this to move, and I'm going to move this up a little bit. Let's just say I want this to move like left to right. So the way to do animations in Unity is when you go to Window, you're going to see this option that says Animation, and I'm going to click Animation. All right. The first thing is you have to create an animation clip. So I'm gonna make a folder. I'm going to call it animations. And then this is where I'm going to store this. Now, you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call this something like walking. And then I'm going to hit save. And now it's going to allow me to edit this animation clip. So if I click add property, I could do a few things here, but I'm just going to have this go along the transform. And because I just want it to move left or right, I'm going to click the position. And so this is the first keyframe, and this is its current position. So let's say that I want it to make another position. So if I right click, I can do add key. And let's just say I'm going to have this move to 5. And then I'm going to go in the next section, right click, add key. I'm going to have this go to 10. I'm going to keep going like this. I'm going to say back to 5. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to add the final key, and I'm going to say back to 0. Okay. And when I hit play, you can kind of see that happening. Now, I've put this in the Y position, which is not what I want to do, but you can see that it's moving. I'm going to hit stop, and I'm going to go in and change this to what it should be. So I'm going to keep this here. I want it to move left to right. So I'm actually going to click on these keyframes right here. I'm going to put this to 0, and I'm going to put this to 5. And I'm just going to go in and change those things. So here. I'll make this one 10. Go back here. I'm going to leave this at 0. So I'm just going to kind of take these like this. Let me make sure I did this correctly. Okay. And sorry about that. This is 10. This is 5. This is 0. Okay. And again, if I hit play, you can see in this animation right here that it's moving around like this, which is fine. We're just illustrating this point. And now what I have to do is I just have to record it. There we go. Hit stop, hit play. And so now when I hit play and I look at my scene, I'm going to see the animation work, hopefully. But now I have lighting, I have some animations. This doesn't allow me to control things like during the game, but it does, if you need a character to just kind of move around or to change, Unity has a pretty good animation editor that can be used for that process. For simple things like movement, changing size, changing scale, things like that. So again, while this loads, a few things to note, like I could clean this area up by growing or having the lights, but then you can see here, this is my character. Now there are no like colliders, there's nothing that's stopping this, so this is a demonstration. But if you have an open area and a character is moving around, this is a good way to. Okay. So the next step, the final element of this crash course is just going to be the character animation. So I'm going to load that up and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is a game I've shown you before. This is one that I'm working on just as like a practice. But when you have a sprite and you have different like sprite editors, so I'm going to show you like this example. These are again, if I double click this, this is called a sprite sheet. And the point of a sprite sheet is to illustrate, it's a 2D illustration and each frame is contained on one piece of paper essentially. So what Unity can do is actually slice these based on however many animations that you want to have, which are called frames. So if I am on this element here, what you have in the inspector is you can, if you select this as single, you can't slice it, but if you select it as multiple, then you're able to slice the sprite sheet. And if I hit play, I'll just show you kind of what it looks like from this area. So you can see like this is my character. Now again, in my game, I have a character that can move, and I have a punch, and I have a kick. So all of these were made in a sprite sheet. I used the Piscal program to design this, and I can move, and I can walk, and I can do all of these animations. So the way to slice a sprite sheet is once you are in this element, you can see it says multiple. This is the size of the canvas that I use, a 32 by 32. A few other things like the filter mode, you can use point no filter. I don't have any compression, but for our purposes now, we're just going to go into slicing sprite sheets. So if I go into the sprite editor, the first thing that you're going to see is I have this editor, and then I also have this option to slice. So when I click it, there's all of these different things. Now, I could do this a few ways. I could click automatic and I could hit slice. And you can see that it kind of worked okay, but these are a little bit different sizes. So like because I have a little bit more space here, it's kind of just making assumptions. That's the best way I can describe it as to where to slice the sprite sheet. The way that is typical is what we would say is cell size. And you can see here that that says 64 by 64, but because I used a 32 by 32 canvas, if I click slice, you can see that it's all perfectly aligned, and I can click apply. And now I have a animation, and I can drag this in right there. and it will make that just like I showed you before, it'll make an animation clip from it, and that's how you can sort of interact with your state machines. And so anything can be sliced this way. Like if I go up here, again, these are the same size of canvas, but I have more animation. So if I go to slice, I pick 32 by 32, but if I pick cell count, it's just saying how many columns and rows do you want? There's one column, and this one would be a little bit more challenging because there are 11. And again, if I hit slice, this one worked pretty well because they're the same size. And then I can also hit apply. And now I have another animation that I can use. But I would say the most efficient way to slice a sprite sheet once you have them is to know the size of the canvas. Again, automatic can work, but like I showed you before, when you go into the automatic slicing, it can be a little bit off, and you may notice that the characters in certain sections, or whoever it is, whatever the animation is, that they may seem like they're starting at different places. So the more precise you can be, again, this one tends to be the best, in my experience at least. The better your animations will generally look. And you can tell because again, this one looks almost perfectly even across all of them. So automatic tends to run really fast and it can work, but it isn't often like the best. You can also go in and edit it manually. Like once it slices, then you can also go in and kind of change things. But in that case, it's maybe better just to use the grid by cell count. All right, so those are the basics of using Unity, doing animations, looking at lighting in a scene. So I hope this series was helpful, and I'll see you in some of the next videos. Have a good rest of your week.